privilege and honor to be in this distinguished gathering. I should admit, this is not something I'm actually prepared for. I have no talk, but because I think delights in putting people, dropping them in to see what they actually say. So I shall try and ad-lib for, I won't take up too much of your time for a few minutes. Now, he did tell me just before this session that he wanted me to say something about science in India and how it is viewed more globally. The first question you are entitled to ask is, obviously people have views on such things, but would you necessarily be interested in knowing what my views are? I mean, what credentials do I have to speak on the matter? And all I would say in that regard is that I share with you, with most of you, the following. I was educated in India. I am an alumnus of IIT Kharagpur, and I did my PhD at the Tata Institute of Fundamental Research, where I also had a staff post. So I'm familiar with the history of science in India, and in particular, the directions in which it has developed in the last few decades. And thinking about what one might say on such a vast subject, I decided to pick up just one theme, which is something that I know is very close to Vikash's heart, and in which he has been, concerning which he has been actually quite outspoken, namely nuclear energy. Now, because it is true that you have been very strongly proactive about the necessity for mining helium and other gases which are rather essential for our atomic or nuclear energy program. But I think one should start by recognizing that although we are in the Meghnad Shah Institute of Nuclear Physics, the word nuclear is a very contentious term today. It is not something that is welcomed by the general public, in particular the population in India. I have many friends and colleagues who are concerned about the environment and related issues, who consider nuclear to be a dangerous, a frightening, and even an offensive term. And I think back to when those who came before us, Shah and Homi and people of their ilk, who had in mind an India that was going to use nuclear technology to be at the cutting edge of science and of promoting organized research. And if their plans had been followed, we would today be like France, producing the bulk of our, meeting the bulk of our energy needs from nuclear power through a fuel economy based on thorium, in which we have an advantage over the rest of the world. And as we all know, that has not happened. And much of the reason that has not happened is because of public concerns about nuclear safety. And in particular, construction of plants was slowed down or halted, not just in India, but all over the world, as we all know, after the Fukushima incident. So I was chatting about this actually to the driver who brought us in this morning. And I asked him how many people did he think had died on Fukushima. The answer is 0. Nobody died at Fukushima from radiation poisoning. The 537 people did die because of the stress and other accidents that happened during their evacuation. And it's therefore, speaking as somebody who has no particular stake in the matter, I'm a theoretical physicist, it seems to me that the obvious facts of the matter have not been communicated appropriately to those who need to know about this. And I think the kind of issues that Vikas has been very involved in championing have also not gained traction precisely because of this gap in a knowledge of the basic facts. And if I may say so, we are all concerned about public outreach and public education. And without wishing to mince my words, we have failed in educating the public, especially in a country like India, where an understanding of science and what it can do to benefit us is particularly important. We have failed to communicate the essential and urgent nature of the technological problems that confront us and how they can be solved indigenously and with the natural advantages that this country has. We have not succeeded in doing that. And therefore we are now in a situation where we could have been a zero carbon economy or heading towards that much faster had we indeed followed the game plan that had been laid out in the 1950s and early 60s by Bhava, Nehru and others, instead of which we are now reliant on polluting coal and oil and so forth. And although this takes me, it's taking me a long way away from the topic that Vikas actually wanted me to talk about, I think it is relevant. Because ultimately it all comes down, scientific temper comes down to accepting facts for what they are worth, without letting one's prejudices or feelings about things influence one, especially when it comes to making decisions that influence over 1 billion people. And to that end, we have today in India leading academic institutions. We do research on a variety of fronts which are definitely world class. There's no question about that. But at the same time, the overall education, the level of standards in the universities by large, even though some of them have indeed come up, and there are obviously famous institutions today in India which have reached a level of at least the top 100 or whatever, there's kind of competition leagues that people set up. But that is not really relevant to what I'm talking about. What is relevant is the general scientific temper or level of education at your average university. Not the Indian Institute of Science or the Tata Institute of Fundamental Research or indeed the Science Institute of Nuclear Physics. I'm talking about the small Mufassil college. I'm talking about the little school down the road. It is those people who are going to be taking on the burden of the future. And it is essential that those of us who are indeed doing science at the leading edge, it is our responsibility to communicate to them. I will not use the word educate them because that sounds like we're talking down to somebody. We have to work with them on a level playing field to try and communicate these essential facts about the world we live in. And to, for example, impress on them that far from being a threat, simply because of the way it has been employed in the past, this also holds the key to our survival for the future. And in that respect, it is essential also that our agencies become more transparent and gain trust from the people. This institute is supported by the Department of Atomic Energy, which has provided the means to do advanced research at many institutions around the country, from which a large number of Indians have benefited. Yet the DAE's public profile could be improved. They could be more confident about asserting to the country what they're engaged in and why it is for the public good, and not have this adversarial nature of interactions with environmentalists and other concerned citizens who simply need to know the facts in order to work together with those who want to build things for the nation. Adversarial politics is not getting any of us anywhere. Now, I suspect I've already gone over my time, and and I don't want to labor the point, but it's essentially this, that science is not something to be kept in ivory towers. It is not something that we need to excel at as individuals, because science is not just done by some famous men and famous women. It is done by a lot of us. Most of us will not be famous, most of us will not be recognized, yet it is the contributions of the many that create the infrastructure on which those great advances are made that you then read about in the papers, attributed to a few men and women. It is a collective activity. We have here people from CERN, which is an example of a collective activity on an international scale, which has demonstrated that indeed, regardless of politics, religion, every other kind of thing that you can think of which divides humankind, scientists can come together to do something for a common end. And the thing that ties them together, that brings them together, is simply the excitement, the intellectual excitement of doing something new. That's what connects us. It fires us up. It makes us stay awake at night. It makes us get up in the morning eager to get to work. Not because of anything else, but the intellectual excitement of actually understanding something more about nature. The applications come next, like nuclear power, which can indeed make a difference. Especially today, when we are all concerned about global warming, and it is quite clear that geopolitical events, such as we are witnessing now in Europe, can completely change the landscape as to what one strategy ought to be in terms of being energy sufficient. So I'll just close by saying that Bikash has devoted his entire career to this end, towards promoting, if I may call it that, scientific temper. And I would say that he has had a considerable success in the matter, but I'm sure you would have wished for more. You would have wished to have actually created a climate in which, at least in his beloved state of Bengal, people were much more positive about using science to move forward. And I look forward to the day when people here, my sister-in-law just had a MRI scan for her mother. She was completely unaware that MRI is actually based on nuclear magnetic resonance, a technique that was developed in the laboratory by physicists, where the word N has been taken out simply because it is believed to be something that puts people off. Let us work together to try and counter that as much as we can, so that people realize that what is really in their own interest to support. And that includes scientific research of the purest form, because it is that which is intellectually exciting and creates the next generation of people who are able to do problem solving wherever it arises, in whatever form or shape it comes. So thank you for giving me this time, because to express a few thoughts. I apologize that they were a little disorganized, because I had not actually prepared to say anything. But I hope, I sincerely hope that you share my sentiments and that we can do this collectively going forward. Thank you.
Thank you, Subir, for your very thoughtful words. Thank you. I call upon the Chief of British Council in India, Barbara Witham, Order of the British Empire.
Professor Sinha, all the dignitaries on the dais, ladies and gentlemen, a very good morning. First, may I congratulate Professor Sinha and his team for organising this fantastic conference that brings together luminaries from a wide range of disciplines and from all around the world, as he's outlined. In many ways, the idea behind this conference represents the values of my own organisation, the British Council. So thank you for inviting us to play a modest part in making this conference happen. India, and in particular Calcutta, has a long tradition, as you all know very well, of contributing to global thinking and excellence in international scientific and philosophical research. And we've heard Rabindranath Tagore mentioned this morning. I'm sure you're all very, very well aware that he was the first Asian and non-white person to be awarded a Nobel Prize. And Professor Sinha and Mr. Narayan have spoken much more eloquently than I ever could about his contribution. I'd like to focus a little bit about what the British Council does and the UK's contribution. And I think we can see by the significant presence of UK scientists in this conference that that's testimony to our world-class education system. 4 of the top 10 universities in the world are from the UK, and 26 of the top 200 universities are also ranked very, very highly. And as a result, the UK is home to world-class research. And Professor Sinha, you know that very well as from your days in Cambridge. There are more references to UK research in academic articles than any other country, and despite representing just 0.9% of the global population, the UK produces more than 15% of the world's most highly cited research. The UK is ranked second for science and research in the world, and 54% of its output is defined as world-leading. The reputation and excellence of the UK's universities and research mean that the country is one of the most attractive for international students, and India is no exception. Almost 99,000 student visas were granted to Indian nationals in 2021, more than 160% higher than 2019. And Indians have now overtaken the USA as the second highest number of international students in the United Kingdom. I'm delighted that this conference is being organised, although 2 years later and many, many email conversation trails on, is being organised in the 75th anniversary of India's independence. And the UK joins the world in celebrating this very important anniversary for India and the world's democratic culture. You'll be pleased to know that the India-UK Roadmap 2030, agreed between our 2 countries, puts education, research and innovation at the heart of our bilateral relationship. I and all my colleagues at the British Council are working to strengthen the education and cultural links between our 2 countries, and we look forward to engaging with many of you as part of that programme. The Astrazeneca Vaccine, developed at Oxford and manufactured at scale at Serum Institute here in Pune, is a perfect example of UK-India collaboration in education, research and innovation, with more than 2.5 billion doses of the vaccine being delivered worldwide. What holds greater interest for me is that 2 of the key co-developers of the vaccine are Dame Sarah Gilbert and Dr. Catherine Green. The reason I mention Professors Gilbert and Green is because gender inequality, especially in science, technology, engineering, mathematics and medicine, STEM for short as we know, is a real issue worldwide. So wearing my old teacher hat, I have a question for you. In its 120-year history, the Nobel Prize in the Sciences has been awarded to how many women? Any answers? 20 is the answer. 20 in 120 years. I could give you many more examples of how historically women in STEM have been underrepresented, underrated, even invisible compared to their male counterparts. Despite the steady rise in women entering STEM fields, we still have to work tirelessly to prove that women are in fact cut out to share the scientific world with men. So I'm very pleased that the British Council is partnering with the Department of Science and Technology on a very important piece of work that draws inspiration from best practice in the UK. It recognises and celebrates good practice in higher education and science and technology institutions here in India towards the advancement of gender equality. That's representation, progression, and success for all. I mentioned earlier the India-UK Roadmap 2030. The roadmap sets out a clear commitment to partnership and collaboration in higher education. UK Research and Innovation, which many of you will know, UKRI, that's the umbrella organisation in the UK for research across all disciplines. Their data suggests that since 2008, the UK and Indian governments and third parties have together invested over £300 million in co-funded research and innovation programmes. That investment has resulted in more than 250 individual programmes involving over 100 industry partners and 175 UK and Indian research initiatives. And many of those building blocks are through programmes like UKERI, the UK India Education Research Initiative, which many of you will be familiar with, and the British Council's recently launched Going Global Partnerships, which looks at the co-creation of programmes of study. Earlier, I spoke about the large number of Indian students who study in the UK. I'm also pleased to say that a very large number of them come back to India. Where they do, they join our ever-expanding UK alumni network across the country. And in Calcutta, in the last 2 years, the UK Alumni Chapter, the Indo-British Scholars Association, IBSA, have helped more than 30 students from socio-economically marginalised backgrounds to study with us at the British Council. And I thank them for raising more funds to mark their 25th anniversary this year. My colleagues and I at the British Council value all our partnerships, and none more so than those making a difference to quality and equality in education and research. I wish this stellar conference all every success, and thank you again, Professor Sinha, for this brilliant initiative bringing India and the world together. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Barbara. To give a view of your thought processes and the role of British Council for education in India. They have done a tremendous job, no question. Next speaker is